right about 544 miles per hour. Being flown today by a young gentleman who has had an illustrious career with the United States Air Force. He comes from Oak Park, Illinois, out by Chicago. Currently resides in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's wanted to be a pilot since he was 10 years old, and he is living the dream.
Because one of these days, he is going to be a pilot. Right. No, he's a tremendous pilot. Air Force demonstration pilot, an outstanding active individual.
He grew up in Chicago, the Chicago area, watching the airplanes fly in and out of Chicago's O'Hare Airport. And he said, I am going to fly. He got an appointment to the United States Air Force Academy. He flew F-16s in the Wild Weasel configuration. Now, wild weaseling in the Vietnam War was very, very dangerous. Flown in a number of different aircraft, that they were actually being bait, if you will, for Russian or North Vietnamese surface-to-air missiles. He did that for 12 years, had 269 combat hours over Iraq and the former Yugoslavian area. His last tour as the Viper East Demo Team Commander just a few years ago. He's got over 1,700 hours in the F-16 Fighting Falcon, and he finds this L-39 Albatros a great airplane. It was Russia's standard trainer, and it continues to be the L-39. Over 2,000 were delivered to the former Soviet Union between 1973 and 1989. The power, about a 5,000 pound of thrust. Movzavsky Sirozyan, and I'm not pronouncing that very well, but it's a turbofan engine. Way less power than the F-16 Fighting Falcon, but still gives it a top speed of over 540 miles per hour. Here comes Hack. Watch the nose come up. Goes into a beautiful aileron roll, throwing that stick over to the left-hand side. There's 2. See if he goes for 3. No, they'll hold it right at 2. Yanks that stick back into his lap. Watch him. He's flying a profile very, very much like the F-16 would have flown, but doesn't have near the top speed. It's not quite as agile because for a number of reasons, it's not as agile. But it's not a fly-by-wire airplane. It's way different. The F-16 Fighting Falcon is actually computer-controlled, isn't it, Larry?
It sure is. You push the stick and you are talking to a computer, and it lets the airplane do as much as the computer says it's going to do, not necessarily where you want to point it. But we don't have to worry about any of that in the L-39.
Direct connections of cables and pulleys and belt cranks and things like that, so that he's got a real feel for the airplane as he whips it around. This has a stick in the middle. The F-16, the F-22 Raptor have those side stick controllers.
Because you don't want to support the weight of your arm while you're doing that. You can kind of rest it on the armrest and just move your wrist around to direct the airplane with the high G F-16, F-22. But this one, you're going to be pulling no more than about 5 times the force of gravity. You can support that. You can hold on to that stick.
This particular airplane was built back in 1983. It was maintained. Now it's maintained. This is kind of an interesting story about this particular aircraft. It is actually maintained here in the United States by a former East German Air Force maintenance officer who worked on L-39s in East Germany when the Soviet Union existed.
Best man to have for the job.
Indeed, no doubt.
I had a chance to fly an L-39. It's a great airplane. It reminded me a lot of the performance of the old T-33 jet trainer before the T-38 came out. It's had that kind of performance. It's a slow rate of climb, but it climbs all the way up to 40,000 feet. A very comfortable, very solid feeling airplane, and fully aerobatic, as you're seeing Hack put it through its paces.
We've had a friend of both yours and mine, a guy named Dan McHugh, was responsible for bringing the first of the L-39s. If you look over your shoulder from the left, photo pass coming up. Get the cameras ready.
Great picture. Look at Hack as he comes by the Albatros. The L-39.
Dan McHugh was one of the first guys, as I recall, to bring an L-39 out of the former Soviet Union. And I think somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 could buy you one, but then you got to spend another $100,000 to get it airworthy in the United States.
Now the good news was that also came with a spare engine, because those were throwaway engines. 1,500 hours, and you threw it as climbability, but roll rates and pressure on the stick it wasn't exactly light on the stick. You felt the pressures. The faster you go, the more pressure you felt. And that's what I'm talking about it felt the same and performed about the same as the T-33.
Not a fly-by-wire, not an electric jet.
But I will say, as far as the L-39, much more agile than the T-33 because it's modern technology. Thinner wing, more of a sweep back on the leading edge. About the same thrust. I think this one is probably about 5,000 or 6,000 pounds of thrust in that single engine.
Right about 5.
In the L-39, and what a pretty airplane. I hope you get your cameras out and take a picture of this airplane as Hack taxis by. The L-39 about to clear the runway on the taxiway.
Actually, some variants or models of the L-39 actually were able to carry weapons.
Yeah, there's hard points under the wings, places where you can hang bombs and phosphorus rocket launchers and all kinds of things under that very, very clean, thin wing.
Now, in the back seat is where the instructor would sit, right, Larry?
That would be correct, and you fly it solo from the front seat. But as you can see, the rear seat sits up just a little bit higher, so that the instructor pilot in the back, and he does have to take it away and land it, has a little bit better visibility. But that's not unlike the T-38, and believe me, that was designed for training, and I love flying that airplane. The instructor sat up there where he could see what I was about to do as I'm about to kill it.
Sure makes a difference when that guy can see that.